to do was, and if you're nice enough to buy 5, 6, 7, 8 copies of the book, you'll know this. Before I even started, I was like, okay, I have a rough idea of what I'm going to do. And if you looked at it, and when you read it time and time again, you'll know, I was like, wow, this guy really did a great job of mapping this all out. That's amazing. What a great job he did. And you're right, I did. But what you won't know is that a lot of it was just dumb luck. A lot of it was just me hitting the gas and putting in Google Maps, let's go there, let's go there, let's go there, and then just literally barging into doors, says, hey, you got 5 minutes? Because there's no bigger lie a salesman will ever tell, or a journalist, than do you have 5 minutes? 5 is probably 15. It's kind of like dealing with a contractor. When's it going to be done? It's going to be done Tuesday. Which Tuesday? Tuesday. 5 minutes? You said 5 minutes. I did say 5 minutes. I didn't say about the additional 35 minutes I was going to take of your time as well. And that's what I did to make this book. And then on Sunday, we got up and we went to AT&T Stadium for a Cowboys game against the Patriots. Big game, right? Can't wait, can't wait. Tony Romo versus Tom Brady, except Tony Romo's got a separated clavicle, so he's not going to be in the game. It's all right, Des Bryant will be in the game. Yeah, no, he won't. He broke his foot. So instead of these big-time sexy matchups, we've got a criminal back in the NFL for the first time, and Greg Hardy, biggest scumbag I've ever interviewed. Rolando McClain, a drug user, he's back in the NFL. That's great. Tom Brady, whose suspension was lifted just in time for that game to play Brandon Weeden. Doesn't quite sell you, does it? Tom Brady versus Brandon Weeden. So the game was a blowout, but the highlight was Jerry Jones, whom I'm a big fan of, and I know a lot of people hate his guts. Jerry was great, and he allowed our photographer in his personal suite, above the suite. And to tell you just how traditional this family is, I talked to Gene Jones, his wife, for the book. And I said, Gene, how often do you go up there? Because if you ever watch Cowboy games, you'll see there's a suite where you get all the A-listers, Jimmy Kimmel, all the pretty people. Well, there's another suite right on top of it, and that's Jerry's personal suite where he goes to watch the game. And I said, Mrs. Jones, I said, how many times? I said, do you go up there very often? She said, oh, no. No, that's just for the men. I've only been up there one time. I'm like, wow, look how far we've come. And I said, what did you go up there for? She said, when Tony Romo had suffered a separated shoulder against the Giants, I think back in 2010, she went up there to see Jerry and they cried. I was like, wow, it's pretty hardcore. And then the game ended, and I interviewed a couple guys. And you know, one of the sad parts about that day was there was a shooting in the parking lot. And the one thing these 4 days was able to do, and why it extended far beyond just football, is that it encaptured so much of what our daily routine is like in Texas. You know, unfortunately or unfortunately, gun culture is a big part of our society and our way of life down in Texas, and we believe in it. So as church, I went to a small church in East Fort Worth before the game to see if attendance was affected by kickoff. And this was a predominantly black church. And I remember I was interviewing this woman, just chatting with this woman. She was reading the Bible. And I asked her that question. She said, oh, no, we'll stay here as long as we need. As long as the Spirit of the Lord is moving with us, we're staying. And you could see she was not screwing around. Like, this was not a joke. Kickoff, yeah, kickoff's kind of important, but it doesn't matter as much as church. And I came away with it, as much love and respect as I have for football. It's the people who do it and make it possible. And I know it sounds so corny, because you hear it all the time, right? Oh, it's the people, it's relationships. And it is a cliche, but it is true. And you see sometimes college coaches or high school coaches or pro coaches who kind of get lost in the way or lose their way, but more and more of them, you know, are trying to do the right thing, and they're doing it because they love it and they want to help young people and mold their lives. And even though football is under fire because of injuries and CTE and concussions, the sport, for the most part, I found, participation-wise, according to UIL, is pretty flat. It's not spiking, but it's not regressing. And as much as we might think as big as football is in Texas, as big as it is in other places, and I interviewed guys about that who played in different states. Shane Leckler, the punter for the Texans, he played in the Raiders. His dad was an AD, and he went to A&M and all that other stuff. He made a great point, and I hadn't thought about it. He said, if you took football out of Texas, he said, I don't know what this state would be like. He's right. This is a great state, and there's a lot of things about it, just very much geography alone. Think about it, I went from Houston, which is on the Gulf, out to West Texas, which is essentially the desert, to Dallas-Fort Worth, which is a concrete jungle. That's in one state. But if you took football away from it, we would lose a gigantic bond. And I loved it. I was really proud of the book, and I hope you buy no less than 5. Does anybody have any questions for me? I know I'm...
Working on now, and what do you have in mind for your next book?
What am I working on now? There's always a lot of pressure about that, you know? You're right. That's one thing I noticed. You have one kid, you're like, when's the next one coming? You know? It's like you're dating somebody. Are you serious? Where's this going? So,
Anticipation.
right, that's it. I don't know. I had written 2. I have all 4 of them out there in case you want to give everybody a bunch of presents. I don't really know yet. I've been contacted about doing a couple of different ones. A publisher had contacted me about possibly doing one on what happened at Baylor. And I know there's some people at the university that aren't particularly big fans of mine for obvious reasons. I don't know if I would, to do that right and to really put it in its proper perspective would take a lot of time. And I've noticed after doing these is that you better really love doing it because it's going to take a lot of your time. Would I do that? Yeah, I mean, if I thought if I had the time, I have a daughter, she's 8. But there is something there, but I'm also very aware now, having gone to Midland or pardon me, Odessa, and I saw the impact that book made on that community. Odessa is different than Waco. Odessa Permian High School is a lot different than a major private Baptist-affiliated university. Those are 2 totally different animals. But I kicked that around. I don't know if I'll do it. I doubt it. Same publishing company wanted me to do a cookbook, believe it or not. And I thought that might be kind of fun. But dealing with chefs can be kind of tricky. They tend to think that they're curing cancer when you want to say, like, dude, it's a cheeseburger. I mean, it's mushrooms. Wow. Oregano, who'd have thought? Wow. So there's that. And I've worked on a couple pieces of fiction before, and I have one I've written about 30,000 words. And when I first did it, I'm like, man, this is amazing. And then I put it down, and I hadn't picked it up for a while, and then I picked it back up, and I was like, wow, this is horrendous. And so, and the hard part about, with nonfiction, the story's there. You just go find it, and report on it, and talk to people or whatever else. With fiction, you're making it all up, which some of my detractors have accused me of doing anyways. So I don't really know. I'd written 2 back to back, and it took a lot of time, and it took a lot of time away from my daughter, who, we only have one, so I try to maximize my time. But I think I still wouldn't mind writing a piece of fiction just to see if I could do it. It's kind of like running a marathon. Okay, I'm probably not going to be Nicholas Sparks, but I think I can finish. And if I can finish, then that's half the battle. But publishing's changed so much now; it's a lot more difficult. But those are things I've kind of kicked around. I kicked around writing a kid's book. So there's like 5 different things, and ultimately I noticed then it's like 7:30 at night. I'm like, wow, I'm really tired. I'll worry about it tomorrow. Anything else?
What made a publisher in Connecticut think a book on Texas football?
There's a guy out of Connecticut, and he just had the idea of writing something in a really condensed version and he wanted to capture sort of the romance of Texas football, which I grew up in Indiana, and I've lived here longer than I've lived anyplace else. But, Indiana basketball kind of gets romanticized. You get the movie Hoosiers and Indiana University and this, that, and the other. Well, if you live there, especially now, you realize, okay, this is a little exaggerated. It's not quite like that. And, not every Texas high school football game is packed. A lot of them, there's nobody there. I remember the first games I covered for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. There's Fort Worth Independent Schools. There's a few hundred people there. Now, if you go out to Stephenville and Brownwood and Katy and McKinney and Southlake and all these other places, Midland, Odessa, those places are full. You're getting 10,000 people, and that's a big atmosphere for a high school football game. And the reality is sometimes the truth is sort of in the middle. And this guy had the idea for about 4 years, and the problem was he couldn't find 4 games in 4 days that had the Cowboys and the Texans. It just didn't work. It just, the schedule didn't work, except in 15 it did. So when he said, do you want to do it? It was like, you're going to do it, or we're not doing it. And that was sort of the idea. And the neat thing that he did, and I think anybody who's ever had a job can relate to this, you ask people about job satisfaction, and one of the first things they say is, yeah, it's great, they leave me alone. Not many people say that. Because a boss can make, or a bad editor, and you remember this, can make your life pretty tough. And this guy left me completely alone. I could not believe, he didn't know me from a hole in the wall. I came recommended through a friend in Denver, and he basically trusted me to do it and gave me this enormous blank slate of canvas and said, fill it up. And I did, and I think the only thing is, I remember when I first started it, he had read the first 2,000-3,000 words. He's like, this feels kind of dark. And I said, yeah, you're right. And after that, I was gone. But it was all about trying to fit 4 games. And really, what he wanted me, and I think I did a better job than I even thought I could, the whole idea was just to cover as many places as I could. Because what you're trying to do is sell it. And that's why we wanted A&M in it so bad, or Baylor, or anybody, was so other schools and other towns would feel affiliated.
And how amazing is it you have Texas OU weekend right between those two?
Oh, it was luck. It was, but there was a drawback to it because we really, really wanted Darrell K. Royal. We really wanted Kyle Field from a visual standpoint. We couldn't get either. So, not that the Cotton Bowl was bad, but the game turned out to be a godsend because they won. So you got these jubilant